Welcome once again to Live from my office. Hi, I'm Steve Cochran, and I appreciate the support. Appreciate you being here. And we got a packed show today, and it's all sponsored, as always, by David Hochberg and Team Hochberg. All they want to do is save you money. Is that so wrong? So I hope you will take part in their money-saving festival that goes on there all the time. Go to 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com and find out more. All right, today on Live from my office, we've got to talk about the debate. I don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. The American people don't want to do it. But I've got a couple of great guests who've got stuff to say about the debate that you haven't heard. And, of course, it also allows me to shoot my mouth off a little bit as well. Joe Walsh, the former congressman, will join us. He misses what he thought the Republican Party was and is doing talk radio again. So stand by for Congressman Walsh and Jason Desanto. Here's a guy that works with candidates running for office on the Democrat side, but also teaches at Northwestern, and he gives us a very fair look at what a debate should be, what that debate was, what might happen in the second debate, all of that coming up as well. And by the way, Jason Desanto watched the debate twice, which means he either is really committed to his job or he's really sick and twisted. So that's today's show, and I don't want to waste a whole lot of time. I want to get right after it because I want you to hear those discussions. And by the way, next week, I just said I didn't want to waste a lot of time. Let's waste a little time. Next week I won't be here, but we'll have new shows anyway. I'll explain that at the end of the show. And I have a special guest host who will be handling things next week and bringing you the new material as well. Hey, Steve, that was really confusing. I know. We'll clear it up. We'll come back, and Congressman Joe Walsh will join us next on Live from my office. Talking about reverse mortgages with David Hochberg. Why does this get a bad rap? I mean, can you really trust these loans?
Here's the deal. My mom was in a wheelchair. She had MS. We converted the living room into her bedroom, bought a hospital bed in there because she couldn't get up and down the stairs. We built a ramp so her mobile wheelchair there could go up and down the stairs.
Sure.
It got to a point where the only asset that my parents had was the house they were living in. So I kept telling them, we need a reverse mortgage. We need a reverse mortgage. They're like, no, I hear bad things about it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm in the industry. These are great loans. Paid for the appraisal, paid for the counseling, which we now have a company that we work with that gets grant from HUD, so you don't have to pay for it. Long story short, I was going to put my parents into a reverse mortgage, Steve, if their house appraised for what my dad thought the house was worth. I did everything that I could possibly do to get my parents set up to take out this product. Do you really think I'm going to put my parents into a product that's dangerous, a loan product?
Exactly.
Hell no.
But here's the thing, because you hit on it, and I don't want people to lose this. There's all this information out there, and then there's the myths that are out there. And the myths that are out there is, that's how they get you. That's what my dad would always say about stuff. That's how they get you. That's how they get you. That's how they get your house. They're not taking your house.
It gives you the option. You get a mortgage statement, like any other mortgage statement, and you have the option to make the payment or defer the payment. Okay? And a lot of individuals, experienced homeowners, has the option. You're going to get a mortgage statement. You're a grown person. You've made financial decisions all your life. You could either take that money that you would have set aside for the mortgage payment to make your mortgage payment and work your principal down, or you could take that money and go on the bus. Well, you can't go on the bus anymore because nobody's going on the bus, but I used to use this example. Get on the bus and go downtown with your friends from the community center. Go see a play.
Right.
Right? Maybe buy a plane ticket and go see your family. Just what do you worry about paying a house off that's already paid off or almost paid off when you could eliminate that payment and live out the rest of your life?
By the way, we'll remind you, whenever we talk to Mr. Hochberg, it's easy to get a hold of him. All you got to do is pick up the phone and call 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. Okay, before we get to this interview, which I recorded earlier, I just want to remind you that whenever Joe Walsh and I get together, we curse a lot. There's a couple of bad words in here, and I don't want to offend anybody, but they're appropriate. So be advised. Joe Walsh, Steve Cochran, we're live from my office. This is live from my office, and my friend Joe Walsh joins me, and we used to be radio colleagues. And now, since I have more time on my hand, Joe is good enough to hire me as his gardener. And I hope you like what I've done with your shrubs.
Love you, love your show. Always will love you.
And you love your shrubs? Yeah, that sounds dirty in some way. I don't even know what that means. All right, so you're doing a radio show now, along with you being an author and a podcaster and all those things. But obviously, I wanted to connect with you to talk about that shit show of a debate we saw the other night, which was political professional wrestling. I didn't know this guy could still talk about Trump, this guy could surprise me at how bad he is at the job, but he did.
I was disappointed, Steve, by what Chris Wallace said yesterday, that he was surprised. He didn't expect Trump to do what he did. He should have been prepared for something like that. Look, I think it was a great night because anything that can expose what a fucking horrible person Donald Trump is, even if it's to 1,000 people who are paying attention for the first time, is a good thing. And that 90 minutes exposed just how, Steve, just how cruel he is.
Yeah.
I mean, what a cruel person he is.
And with no mirror and no sense of self-awareness, for him to stand up and question Biden about his sons, one of whom is dead and served this country proudly in the military, when he has got these spawns that have been living off him and his fame, who have been stealing from everybody in business and now from the country, and he acts like that doesn't even matter.
But again, that's why I think it was a good night, because Trump and the family, they are, in a way, it's almost impressive how uniquely cruel and stupid they are. So for Donald Trump to go after Hunter Biden, and Hunter had an addiction problem, and Trump goes there because he's a cruel son of a bitch. But what a stupid political thing to do. There's Joe Biden then looking into the camera saying, yeah, my son, who I love, had an addiction problem. He's working on it. He's fixed it. Politically, think of all the moms and dads out there who can relate to what Biden said.
100%.
I mean, that politically hurts Trump too, in addition to being cruel.
Well, to follow up on your point about Chris Wallace, you've done this for a long time, and I have as well. It's very difficult when you get an obstinate guest to control them, short of over yelling them or hanging up on them or pulling the plug. So I put some of the blame on the committee for debates for not having a kill switch on the microphones. Now, because the rules have to be agreed to ahead of time, I'm sure the Trump people would have said they won't do the debate, which I think is what's going to happen next. Because Biden's got to do the debate. He said he'll do the debate. I think there's a very good chance, the committee has said they're going to make some changes. I don't know what changes they can make beside that. I think there's a very good chance Trump says no to the second debate.
I think there's a good chance as well. You and I may disagree on this. I think I tweeted that night, if I'm Biden, I don't do this again. I'm done. You're winning. You don't need to stand on the stage with that ass.
Well, that's true.
If I'm Biden, I don't do it again, because Steve, I went to bed that night convinced that this thing's over. I think Trump lost the election that the other night, period. Anybody who's undecided, and there are more undecided people out there than people realize, who tuned in, he lost more people than he gained, and he was losing going in. So I think it's done. I mean, we still got to get out there like Biden's 20 points down.
You can't have 100 million people not vote like last time, obviously. But here's the thing. I think there's a lot of people. We always talk about people who will go in. They'll say they vote for Hillary, or in this case, Biden, but then they vote for Trump. Yeah, there's definitely people like that. I think you're going to see people who have said they support Trump, who have had enough, who may go home and tell their friends they voted for Trump, who are going to vote for Biden. I think there's going to be a big flip in that, specifically because of the debate, because there are Trump supporters who don't pay attention, the same way Biden supporters don't pay attention, until the first debate and until this last 35 days, who had to be stunned with what they saw.
This is why I've always enjoyed listening to you over the years, because I love your gut. I think you're right, Steve. And what makes me unique is, I'm not a never Trumper from the beginning.
Right.
Like Trump's people were my people. They were the people who adored me until I turned on Trump. But here's the cool thing, Steve. So I've got this daily radio show now, and I'm an anti-Trump conservative trying to make it go in the conservative media world. But I will privately be contacted by Trump supporters who listen to me every day. And most of them say, go to hell, Walsh. But some of them, Steve, say what you just said. Oh, my God, he's embarrassing. I'm sick of it. So I do think there might be a silent, what are you saying, a silent Biden supporter maybe out there.
Yeah, I don't even know what you'd call it. But, yeah, I think there's people that maybe they don't even want to do it, but they're saying this guy has to be removed from office. The Senate Republicans will never have the guts to be men enough and women enough to do it. And I've got to make a stand here. And by the way, I don't care if you go home and tell people you voted for Trump. Just don't vote for Trump.
Well, Steve, I hear every day, again, because these are my people, I hear every day from a few Trump supporters who will tell me, I can't vote for him again. Now, some of them will say, I can't vote for Biden. I just can't do it. But if they don't vote for Trump, that's fine.
Let's talk about Biden for a second, because, and this happens to both parties, but there has been such a raft of bullshit that has been thrown out about Biden, which is just flatly not true. This is a guy who, you may not like his politics, but he has worked with Republicans through the years. Yeah. This is a guy who said he'll be the president for people that support him and don't support him. Obama didn't do that. Trump certainly hasn't done that. And this is part of my sermon. You're the president of the United States. You're not the president of your party, and you have to represent everybody. And I believe Biden will make his best effort to do that. So when you continually hear this nonsense about, well, he's senile and he sleeps 23 hours a day, or he's taking too many meds or whatever, it's nonsense. The guy will get every phone call returned because he's been in D.C. forever. He has served as vice president. He's served as senator. He's made his bones. And for 4 years, he's going to have to clean up Trump's mess. But I think he's the right guy to do it, because we need some empathy in this country. And nobody knows more about empathy than he does.
To a man and a woman, Steve, in the United States Senate, Republican senators over the years will tell you he's their favorite Democrat, because, as you say, he works with Republicans every bit as well as he works with Democrats. He's always had that reputation. Do I wish he were 15, 20 years younger?
Sure.
Yes. The other night
I wish I was 15 or 20 years younger.
Yes. The other night in that debate, I didn't think Biden, I wish he were stronger and sharper in that debate to really effectively punch Trump. But he is, as you say, he's a good, decent human being. And I really think that's enough right now. I think that's what most of America is yearning for.
Now, you've been in those rooms, so take me behind the scenes on this, but I feel like this is what happened in the room. The Trump people get together, and forget about that cockroach Stephen Miller, but the Trump people get together, the people that know politics, and they say, okay, we can't get anything done on the issues because he'll lie. We can't get him going toe-to-toe with Biden because Biden will beat him.
Yeah.
We've got to do what he does best. Turn him loose to be a dick. And that's what they did, and it went too far. Isn't that possible that that's how it went down?
Oh, absolutely. And privately, Steve, that's what his advisors will say. They told him they wanted him to be aggressive early because they wanted to force by a big gaffe out of Biden, because Trump's down. But again, this is Trump, so he fucks everything up. And again, it's kind of cool how uniquely stupid and just mean Trump is. If he hadn't interrupted Biden so much and let Biden, because there were moments in there where Biden was kind of stepping into some things, but Trump can't help himself. So he kept interrupting Biden. So the story became how rude and petulant Trump is instead of anything that Biden said. But to your point, this notion of Biden is an old senile guy, That's what every Fox News viewer believed going into that debate. That was not an old senile guy the other night.
And you know what's funny is the double standard, right? Because the Fox audience is 60 plus. And, there's 65-year-olds that feel like they're 80, and there's 80-year-olds that feel like they're 65. But the point being, there's folks who know what it's like to get older, and you forget a few things. And maybe your words don't come together like they used to, but you know you're still good. And you know you've lived longer than other people have, and you know your shit. Yet they can't give Biden credit for that. However, I've done this, and I know you have as well. I'll talk to people who are successes in business, friends of mine who are Trump supporters, and I'd say, will you hire them? Would you hire Trump to run your veterinary clinic? Would you hire Trump to shovel shit in the dog kennels? And the answer is no. So how do you equate that? How do you say Biden's not ready to be president because he's old like me, but I'll stick with Trump, who I wouldn't hire at my own business? Those two don't connect.
No, but the difference is, again, just the fucking cult, the Fox News watching cult. Steve, when you look at the broad data right now, Trump beat Hillary, 65 and older. Trump beat Hillary among those voters, I think by 8 or 9 points. Biden right now is 3 or 4 or 5 points up among older American voters nationwide.
That's big.
That's game, set, match, Steve. That's it. I mean, so I think that Trump's attacks on Biden's old age, I think, are hurting him with seniors, as well as Donald Trump. What did he say a couple weeks ago? He was talking about how COVID is only killing older people, and so it's really not affecting anybody. I mean, hello. So he is getting hurt among older voters.
Yeah, because you have to be offended at some level. Whether it's Putin and looking the other way at Putin and his bounties on killing American soldiers, or mocking the old folks.
Hey, Steve, I don't think this is complicated. I just tweeted out about an hour ago, and pardon my language. I tweeted out that I don't think this is complicated. I think Trump's going to lose by a lot, because I think the vast majority of America is just sick and tired of having a fucking asshole in the White House. I really think that's what it comes down to. We have a very bad person in the White House, and most Americans are just tired of that.
Yeah, it's exhausting. It's just exhausting.
Yes.
You look forward to the days where nothing happens in the news. And, I mean, I'm not going to miss that. People go, well, where are you going to get material? I look forward to having to look for things to talk about than to talk about this ass clown every 10 minutes.
Well, you and I do, but see, again, CNN's, a lot of these networks have made a lot of money off of Trump, and even, Zucker, and I wonder if deep down some of these big media people want him to lose.
Well, it's possible, but I firmly believe the truth that you're going to see, and I want to talk to you about the vote thing too in a second, but I think what you're going to see is he will do a conservative media challenge to Fox. I've heard from people that he's already got an offer on the table from Fox to get his own show, to do his thing, because they don't want him on another network.
Right. But
other networks might build an entire network around him. As well, because he wants to be on TV. He doesn't want to be president. He wants to be on TV. That's why he started this. The guy that does NBC reality shows told everybody. He called me up. He said, this isn't a real race. I'm going to do the thing coming down the escalator. I'm going to do the thing at Trump Tower. I just want to get a better deal for The Apprentice and Me, where we now know, because of the New York Times tax story, that's where he made his money. So that's what it's all about. He wants to be on TV. So that's where it's going to go. But to tie it back into what you were talking about voting, how big a route does this need to be for the American public to understand it's a mandate?
Well, I would say, how big a route does it need to be for the American people to understand it's legit? It's a legitimate election.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing, but that's a better way of putting it.
That's what scares the hell out of me, Steve, is because you and I are about the same age. I've never lived through a president purposely undermining the legitimacy of the election. And it's dark, man. Let's be clear what he's doing. He does not want his supporters to accept the results because he wants to incite them to violence. I'm telling you. It's unbelievable that you and I are having this conversation. But yeah, so I worry about that. Now, I'm not contrarian on this. I believe you and I are going to go to bed on election night and we'll know that Biden won. I don't believe it's going to take days and weeks. I think Biden's going to win convincingly, but I think the problem remains. There will be 35 to 40% of the population who will not accept it. Things will get ugly. There will be violence, and Trump, to your point, isn't going away.
No, and I think that he will use that new TV career to try to fight the fact that the Southern District of New York has obstruction of justice cases teed up against him. And obviously, he's going to have an Al Capone tax evasion problem. That's going to be a federal case coming up as well, because he and Ivanka, this is not hyperbole. Nothing you say anymore is, I suppose. But they could both end up in jail. It's just it's unbelievable. So he is desperate to stay in office because of that idiotic policy in the Justice Department that you can't indict a sitting president.
Right. And I agree with you that I don't think he wants necessarily to be president. He just wants his face on your TV screens. But he could run again in 4 years if he wanted to. Now, I only bring that up, Steve, because assuming he's not in jail, Donald Trump will lose in November, but if he wanted to run in 2024, he would get the Republican nomination again without a doubt.
Yeah.
If he wanted it, he could do that again.
Now, again, it's predicated on the fact that he's not in jail, but those are a lot of things to go over. How about this for a scenario? I thought about this the other day. Okay, he's going to go to jail, or he's going to face jail when he loses the election. It's January. We've gotten through an ugly couple of months, but now we're just a couple of weeks away from the inauguration. It'll be Biden's presidency. And he takes Air Force One on a little trip to Europe one last time. He goes to Europe, and he doesn't come back. And then you try to extradite the president of the United States. Come on, you know what could happen.
Leave him there. Just get that damn plane back.
Exactly. We need what's worth money.
Well, you're right. And look, man, Steve, I think Chris Wallace fucked up the other night because he failed to imagine what could happen. Just like 9/11 was a failure of imagination.
Yeah.
We need to imagine the worst and prepare for it. But what we know is the institutions that protect our democracy hate him. The military hates him. The intelligence community hates him. So when he loses and Joe Biden is sworn in, man, there's no loyalty to Trump. They will do what they have to do.
So you talk to the people you served with in Congress. You stay in touch with people who were your friends or people.
I'll do you one better, Steve Cochran. I'll do you one better. I heard from a number of, and I won't give names, a number of sitting Republican members of Congress who have contacted me in the last 2 days who have said the following. He fucking blew us up the other night. He blew up every one of our campaigns. I mean, they're telling me that privately. They're telling me that these Republicans, that Donald Trump's performance the other night, not only did it blow up Trump's campaign, they believe it blew up every competitive Republican campaign.
Is there
But they won't say that publicly.
Yeah, and by the way, you've taken the heat for it. Pat Brady, our friend who used to run the Republican Party in Illinois and is still a Republican, he's taken heat for it. But here's the thing. Do we have enough time for this? And is it going to be a scenario where Mitch McConnell realizes he's going to lose his job and the Senate, so he breaks with Trump? And the message would be, we need to control the Senate. The president has made too many mistakes, and he comes out and stands up for the country. Would he make a play like that?
No, I think it's already done. And again, I won't give names, but I believe, Steve, that Mitch McConnell already knows that Trump's going to lose, and I think Mitch McConnell already knows he's lost the Senate. All he cares about is the Supreme Court justice. So I think that die is already cast. McConnell already knows he's not going to be the majority. So I don't think he'll say or do anything.
And by the way, we should say that the best case scenario in this country is not a one-party controlled House, Senate, and White House. It's just not. So there's a responsibility on the Democrats, if it goes that way, to not play revenge poker and just say, okay, now you get yours. They got to live up to the message.
No, but you're right. But in the Democratic Party's defense, right now there's not a viable second party. I don't think people sufficiently realize that the Republican Party is a dying party. It's a minority party now. So, I mean, it's a cult. It's everything you and I say it is. So, and that's not going to change for a while. So, and that's not on the Democrats, but let's hope they govern responsibly.
How do you, going forward, the true tenets of the Republican Party, Lincoln's Republican Party, and going through into the greatest generation and beyond, conservative spending, less government, strong military, those things matter. Can they be rebuilt, or do they have to go under a different brand now?
I think it's going to have to be a different brand, and I think it's going to take a long time. And all you got to do is look at somebody like me. So I'm a center-right, open my arms, limited government kind of a guy. But because I'm so anti-Trump, I could not get elected to anything as a Republican in 2022 or probably 2024. So somebody like me who's anti-Trump is in the wilderness. And I don't think that's going to change. Even when Trump loses, Trumpism is going to win. If Trump doesn't run for president again, you know who will? Tucker Carlson, maybe. Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz. They're all trying to carry Trump's intolerant, ugly message, but be a better candidate. And that's going to dominate the party for a while.
By the way, I'm going off the rails here a bit, but just man to man, how do you look yourself in the mirror if you're Ted Cruz when he said your father helped kill Kennedy and your wife is ugly, and now you're kissing his ass? How do you square that?
Steve, you and I, if we're together and we're having a couple pops, we will laugh about how pathetic it is that, like Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham, how pathetically they've sold their soul. Oh. If somebody publicly called my wife ugly, I would never, ever forgive them.
Absolutely.
But let's.
And by the way, I know your wife, and she's not ugly.
All Cruz wants is to run for president. Nikki Haley, with a straight face, a year ago said Donald Trump is a truthful person. She knows that.
Shame on her.
Right.
Shame on her.
But she sold her soul. They want to be the person in 2024. I couldn't do it. You couldn't do it.
No, be a man. I mean, it's just sad and ridiculous. All right. So, is there going to be a second debate?
Yes. And I doubt there'll be a third. And the only reason, Steve, I think there'll be a second is it's a town hall format. And so I think that will constrain the ask that Trump is a little bit more.
Now, you've done debates. I moderated one of your debates, and your mic shut off. If you wanted to do what Trump did the other night, you could still be heard on the other mic. I don't even know how that controls him. And since the rules have to be presented to the candidate and his campaign, this is where I come back to Trump's not going to do it.
Yeah.
How does he get around that? He shut Trump's mic off? No way.
Yeah, you can't. You're right. Logistically, you can't shut a mic off. You'll still hear him. That's the wrinkle. I think you make a good point, Steve Cochran, is that Team Trump may not accept any changes in rules. I was nervous for Joe Biden the other night. I really was going into that saying, I think they're breathing a big sigh of relief, not because Biden did great, but Biden did okay and Trump did so poorly. So I now believe Team Biden is fine. Let's do a couple more because he's incapable of having a good debate. So Trump may be the only one who bails.
By the way, a mountain of cash has gone to the Democrat side after that debate the other night, and that that goes to what you're talking about, how he's ruined it for Republicans running for Congress. But you know what? If you sided with this guy, you deserve exactly what you're getting.
Hey, mama, if I were with you right now, Cochran, I'd kiss you on your forehead. Amen. They fucking own this.
Right.
The Senate Republican Committee, Steve, just put $10 million in advertising into South Carolina to save Lindsey Graham's ass.
Right.
I mean, they're trying to save South Carolina. They all deserve this. They all own it. They all enabled him. Too many of them over the last 2 years, these Republicans have told me privately, Joe, I love what you're saying publicly. This guy is unfit. He's a disgrace. But none of them have said that publicly. So they all deserve to go down in my book.
So let's talk about a couple things going on with you. And you really suck at promoting yourself, so I'm going to have to help you do it. Joe Walsh put a book out earlier this year, which is terrific. And you might be a little scared by the title, but you're a grown-up, so pick it up and read it. What's it called?
Yeah, it's not doing very well. The timing sucked. the book is called F Silence. Fuck Silence, calling Trump out for the authoritarian he is. You can still buy it on Amazon. There are just so darn many Trump books out there. But this was pre-pandemic and pre-impeachment, and it makes the case that Trump is unfit.
Yeah.
And he's mainly unfit because he's incapable of putting the country's interest ahead of his own.
And tell me about the radio network you have now.
GabRadioNetwork.com. That's Gab with a G. If you go to GabRadioNetwork.com, look for the Joe Walsh Show. I'm on every day, Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 in the afternoon Central Time. You can listen from anywhere, live or the podcast. It's just me, like you, Steve Cochran. This is what I loved about you. I just tell you what I think every day, and you can call in and tell me what you think. That's it. It's fun.
Yeah, and give you things to think about and go and do what you will with it. And the website?
No website yet. If you want to follow me on Twitter, follow me at Walsh Freedom. And then I've got that other podcast, which is F Silence, fsilencepodcast.com. That's enough promotion, Steve.
I love this because it makes you so uncomfortable.
I hate it.
When do you
I'd rather promote Steve Cochran. By the way, for everybody listening right now, I lose. I only served 2 years in Congress. I don't have a job. I need to find a job. And somebody taught me how to do radio, and the man who taught Joe Walsh how to do some radio was Steve Cochran.
I taught you nothing. The greatest thing is when I was doing the afternoon show, the show that you took over at WIND, and
you graciously went to a bigger station. Thank you.
Yeah, and you followed me. The greatest thing was the crossover when you and I would argue. You and I would argue about something, and we both have grins on our face, but we sounded like brothers beating the hell out of each other. It was good radio.
Well, that's, what's cool is a lot of people didn't think, like you and I do fundamentally, we disagree on some issues. And
I'm more center than you, no question, yeah.
Yeah, fair point. But I loved it. And I remember, Steve, I'll never forget this. After my first night of doing radio, I was nervous and I thought I sucked. You sent me a text message and said you did just great. Yeah. And yes, you did. You taught me how to do radio in that you said just talk, speak honestly, and listen to the callers. And it's a cool thing.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when you listen how much better you are? Yeah, the country could use a little dose of that. It's my friend Joe Walsh, and I meant what I said. Guys like you and Pat Brady, we need you to save the Republican Party. No pressure, but not the label, the Republican Party, but what the Republican Party stood for. That needs to happen, whatever you call it.
I'm with you on that, Steve.
All right, I'll connect with you again soon. This is Steve Cochran. That's Joe Walsh, and this is Live from my office. This is Live from my office, presented by Team Hochberg and my friend David Hochberg. We thank you for the partnership and really looking forward to it. Speaking of Hochberg, my sister just refied her house for the second time with Team Hochberg. You guys all know John DeCosse. John DeCosse was having some issues and had some debt issues. He basically was a drifter going from town to town, just stumbling into saloons. But he reached out to Hochberg, and he was able to get him out of debt, enhance his credit, refinance his previous home, helped him secure the financing on a new home, and John has never been happier. And how is he paying it forward? Well, he's mowing David's lawn, but he's also telling people about Team Hochberg. You want to know more, and you should, because I'm telling you, rates are so low now, it's ridiculous. If there was some good news to come out of this crazy year we're in, this is probably near the top of the list. He's got a passion for helping listeners. He helped me with our loan when we finished off this house that I'm currently broadcasting from. I don't know if you heard, I'm live from my office. He did my daughter's loan on her first house as well. Point being, I trust him, and that's why I recommend David Hochberg and Team Hochberg. Here's what you do. You pick up the phone. You call 855-56-DAVID. Website is easy to remember, too. It's 56david.com. Refinance to pay off your debt. Reverse mortgage information right there as well. Help you purchase a new home. I trust him. He's David Hochberg. It's Team Hochberg. There's nobody better when it comes to your home. This is Live from my office, and one of the cool things about able to do Live from my office, and thank you for listening wherever you're listening, on whatever platform, subscribe, make me look good. But I get to get together with my friends without any restrictions of any kind from any genius that employs me, because I'm the genius. I'm the very stable genius now. Gosh. Which allows me to say this. Welcome to Live from my office. My old friend Jason Desanto. How are you?
Hey, Stever. How are you?
Great to have you on. You used to do the radio show with me with regularity, and then you got so busy with your one-man show and touring the country. And oh, wait, that was somebody else. Anyway, I'm glad we're connected again. And I've said this to you before publicly and privately. There's nobody that knows politics as well as you do, and in particular, the great art of the debate. That shit show we saw a couple of days ago was not actually art of any kind. So you're a great dad. How did you handle... Because when you and I were kids, you know, watching a debate, that could be if a teacher was a good teacher, they'd say, watch the debate so we can talk about it tomorrow at school. Knowing that it may go sideways, but not to the level that it did you have your kids watch that at all?
Well, it's sad to say that my kids are unfortunately already attracted to it, even at their ages, particularly the older one.
Oh, I get it.
And I have, I've taken through the years to watching with my older son, Luca, and my younger son, Finn. They both engaged with it, and they both did very briefly the other night. Luca commented to me that the president appeared to be like that kid in the back of the class who just keeps talking over the teacher. I thought that was a pretty good metaphor.
Great metaphor.
For what we were actually watching. Yeah, but it's you know, I do worry about kids of this era. I mean, I worry about the effect of COVID as being kind of a life-altering experience for them in the way that the Depression was for our parents.
Sure.
And just being, you know, something we don't really have a handle on now in terms of, I guess, partially psychologically, but just in terms of worldview, the way that it has shaped them. And I also think the same thing about the current political times that we live in. And they have been born into and grown up at some really interesting times in this country, starting in the Obama era and moving through when they were really young, the earliest parts of the Great Recession, and then the election of Trump, and really a destabilizing political world. And along with that, you know, I think about when I grew up and when I was younger, Nixon was president, but the real formative years for me are when Carter and Reagan were president, and you couldn't have two more diametrically opposed people occupying the White House, but you also had two people who really conducted themselves with dignity, and they each had, and for Jimmy Carter still, they have a certain grace about them, and that's the example of people in the highest office in the land that was formative for me, regardless of political stripe. And it's one of the reasons that I have great respect for both of them and for both of their legacies. And my kids don't quite have that same experience with what's been going on for the past few years. And that's my own personal view, but I think it's something they could figure out for themselves.
But what you're describing is really important because we don't know the half-life of the damage of that in regards to respect for the office of the presidency and not just the authority, but the moral authority and the actual authority that comes out of it. We don't know how much damage has been done that may not be generationally fixable.
Well, and the thing that I worry about is that one of the reasons, in my view, that Trump was able to earn the presidency, and we'll talk a little bit more about the debates in a minute, was that one of the things he did in his debates in 2016 and throughout his campaign was he really did successfully prosecute the case that he was the outsider to the political system.
Yep.
And one of the reasons that was so successful is how cynical people are about politics and the degree to which they really think all candidates are the same. So why not inject Captain Chaos into the scene who can shake this up? And I actually think there was room for that. I think in some ways, the tragedy for me of the Trump presidency is a little bit of a missed opportunity to have somebody from the outside to come in and be able to shake up the political system in a way that was constructive and productive. And what I really worry about is that what's actually happened is that Trump hasn't refurbished our politics, that he's actually simply thrown gasoline on cynicism, so that people of good faith, goodwill on all sides of political issues are much less apt to view the political arena as a place where those issues can be hashed out in a meaningful way. That generationally is something that I'm concerned about. It's also one of the reasons that I'm more optimistic about younger generations than I am about my own in terms of usefulness in the political arena. That said, I think we all have a duty at this point in time to do what we can to maintain the democratic project, to maintain the idea of the rule of law, and to maintain the idea of communication that can actually touch and move and unite people, not bring them apart. And so kind of a modus operandi right now.
Sure. And because you know debates like people don't, you teach it, you study it. I know you watched it the other night, but you told me something before we started that rocked me to my core. You watched it once and turned it off, right?
Well, I turned it off at the end of the first viewing, and then just to make sure that I saw what I thought I saw, I watched it again. And I recommend that to no one.
That is unbelievable. I'm going to insist a proclamation comes forward to honor you for that.
I'm going to say, and I think this would be only peculiar to me, perhaps, and maybe the background that you identified and in my long relationship with these experiences in debate. I actually, having watched it the second time, came away with two slightly different conclusions than having watched it the first time. The first time I watched it, my conclusion was that this was a presidential debate that was neither presidential nor a debate.
Right.
The second time I watched it, my conclusion was that the president seemed less aggressive and obnoxious, and Joe Biden seemed sharper and more on point.
That's interesting.
I have no idea.
But are you speaking
I have no idea whether that's true or not.
The ebbs and flows of it? Because there were certainly points where it went off the rails and was a train wreck, and then there were points where it weren't. So you're saying the second time through that ebb and flow, that was more visible?
I think what was more visible to me was what the actual format was. See, the first time I watched it, it was unclear what the format was to me. Mm-hmm. When I watched it again, I recognized that they were each supposed to have 2 minutes and that Trump was really aggressive during Biden's 2 minutes. But they were supposed to have an open discussion after that. So the idea that they could talk over each other a little bit in that segment would be pretty natural. The degree to which it happened was not natural. And Chris Wallace did not do a good job of doing job one of a moderator, which is to moderate. Don't fact check. Don't restate positions. Don't inject yourself into the proceedings. Those are not appropriate roles for moderators. But moderating is, and that didn't happen. Now, when I watched it the second time, I kind of understood the format a little better, and I think that made me understand a little bit more what the ebb and the flow was supposed to be. Now, I don't want to in any way insinuate that the way that the president handled his performance in the debate was appropriate, because I don't think that it was. I do think it was methodical, though, and we can talk more about what I think his strategy was and why.
I think so, too, because I think I talked about this morning with someone. I think what happened was his people, short of the one that I call the cockroach, Stephen Miller, his people got together in a room and said, look, we can't win on stances on issues. We just can't. We got the people that we have. We can't get anybody beyond that. We need to turn him loose to be aggressive. They advised him to be aggressive, and he took it to Trump level 10. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Well, and I'll add two pieces to that. I mean, the first piece is it's possible that his advisor said to him, look, there's a pretty long track record of incumbent presidents in their first debates of a cycle being a little soft on their opponents, not being sharp. certainly that was the case for Ronald Reagan in 1984, the first debate he had against Walter Mondale. He had to rebound from that in debate number 2. There were all those questions about his age that came up after his first debate, which he was able to rebut with a one-liner in the second debate that year. It was also the case with George W. Bush in 2004 debating against John Kerry, and it was also the case with Barack Obama in 2012 when he was clobbered by Mitt Romney in the first debate. So he probably was advised, look, no matter what, you have to be yourself. You got to be aggressive, because if you're not, there's this long list of presidents running for re-election who really didn't fare well in the first debate because they were not sharp enough. But the second point, which I think is much more important here, is that if we look at debates generally, I always think there's 3 goals for a debater in a debate. One of those is to do no harm. You don't want to create the impression or the gaffe that lives on. The second is to articulate your message, your story, your narrative about your candidacy and about your opponents. The third, which in some ways is probably the most important, though, is to project core leadership attributes. Core leadership trust attributes. And there really are 2 of those. They work together. One is authority, and the other is humanity. You can think about it interchangeably with the terms competence and likability, or strength and warmth. And what we're looking for when we tune in, we're not going to understand every single issue that's being discussed as viewers, but what we're looking for is this leader somebody who's up to the job, and also are we comfortable with them coming into our home for the next 4 years? So the jury, the jury is in for Trump on those, but not for Biden. Right. So the question with Biden on the authority question is really vigor. This narrative pushed by the Trump campaign that he is not up to the job, that he's too frail. And so if you know that on many issues your positions don't poll well, then your strategy is, I've got to try to undermine those leadership attributes. So I'm going to be as aggressive as I can be. And the other piece of data that the Trump campaign would have is that in the primary debates, Biden did not fare well in a multi-candidate setting. Right. Whereas in the past, one-on-one, he's actually been pretty effective as a debater, including in this cycle against Bernie Sanders. So that's easy for Trump. He says, okay, look, I know that I'm going to try to bully him, I'm going to try to hector him, and I'm going to simulate for him a multi-candidate debate. I'm just going to play the roles of all the other debaters. I could do that from a personality perspective. I can be that much of a bulldozer, and I'm going to make this guy shrink on that stage. I think that was the strategy. Yeah, and I think it may have been verbalized that way, certainly by his people, but I think the only thing you can say to someone of Trump's intellect is go get him. And he did, but with his typical lack of self-awareness and a mirror that well-placed sources say, he walked off that stage thinking he did a bang-up job, not having any sense again of what the job is, what it means to have the job, and the importance of communicating to the American people. He didn't care about it in 2016. He doesn't care about it now. Well, but at least in 2016, he had messages. And this goes back to the outsider message that he was able to, as a debater in 2016, I thought he was methodical and scattershot at the same time. Mm-hmm. In other words, on the big themes, he was real consistent, and he stayed on those messages regarding outsider status. And he pursued those pretty relentlessly. Along the way, he'll always throw in the scattershot insult and the other comments and the things to distract you. But the strategy overall is you chase his ground balls while he's putting runs on the board. And that's what I thought he did well in 2016. The other night, he didn't really come in with anything on any larger frame or story or overarching narrative, that other portion of debate success that would leave voters with a sense of anything really that was that strong of an impression. And conversely, Biden at the beginning was, I think, reticent to push back. And I think the tactics against him were working until about 10 or 15 minutes into the debate when he did start to push back. And he kept looking at the camera and looking at the audience at home, which is a good strategy. And he was able to get off some lines. And he did push back, which I think he needed to do. And as a result of that, I think he defeated the strategy that Trump had laid out against him.
So you talked about Wallace for a second, and I guess I'm a little more sympathetic. I agree with you. He didn't get it done. But what do you do? This is the debate teacher, the debate expert that you are. What do you do when you have someone in a debate that doesn't follow the rules? I mean, how could he have done it differently is what I'm asking.
He did an interview yesterday with the New York Times, and I agree with you. It's a difficult challenge. I am sympathetic to the situation he was in. Where he got in probably minute 45 or 50 of the debate, when he was much more insistent about Trump following the rules, needed to come about a half an hour sooner. That, to me, would be the difference, and to be firmer about that. And I do understand there are some other dynamics at play here. Trump's sense of being aggrieved and constantly inveighing against the press would make a moderator like Chris Wallace be more reluctant to get involved and to be used then as a political cutout and prop for Trump over the next 10 days. Because what Trump does is he litigates these issues. He lays the groundwork for all this stuff. He lays the groundwork for a negative perception, in this case of the press. And then later on, when somebody in the press does their actual job, or a moderator does their actual job, then he goes out and argues about why what was done was inappropriate. By the way, that's the same way that he set up in 2016 the idea of a rigged election, so that when President Obama discovered that there was Russian interference on his behalf in 2016, they never went public with it.
Right.
Because they were concerned that that would be used as a political prop by Trump. So that's part of his game, is reframing and resetting things so that he's the aggrieved one, and that he can later claim that something that's really quite neutral and duty-bound is actually being done against him. I understand all that as it applies to Chris Wallace. I just think he should have gotten there earlier and been firmer with him sooner.
So does Biden get you're the teacher, does Biden get a B+ in the end, or is it a lower grade than that?
He gets about he gets a good. How about that?
Okay.
You know, these letter grades, Steve.
I know. I really aging myself, aren't I?
I think we've moved beyond that in this era. He gets a good, and I'll tell you why. He, in some places, was really good at maintaining a focus on people at home, speaking directly to them. Occasionally, he got off a good line, which I'm pretty sure they had practiced. It is what it is because you are who you are. Yep. Regarding COVID, that was a sharp line. And there were some other ones. And I think ultimately he was really good when it came to, in the discussion about white supremacy, really goading Trump into saying something about the white supremacist group, the Proud Boys. If you really watch that video, it's really Biden who's goading him on.
Yep.
Those were all really good moments for any debater. I think there were a few times, though, where he got knocked off track. I think he was a little soft at the outset. And there were some places where I think he didn't make a very good argument about what he would do. And to your point earlier in our discussion, that's important. You got to give people a sense of what the world's actually going to look like. He certainly communicated empathy well. He communicated his strength well. There was a poll done afterwards, scientific poll, which said that most of the people who watched the debate, and this is weighted by likely voters, thought he's the stronger candidate than Trump, had more strength than Trump. So again, if you're Trump trying to undermine that part of Biden's persona, you failed. So overall, he gets good marks, but there's room for improvement. And as somebody preparing for a debate, that's a good thing. Right?
Yeah,
keeps them focused. They're going to keep working. They're going to try to move forward.
All right. So Trump has no problem getting deeply personal. Again, he has no self-awareness. So for him to attack Hunter Biden was no surprise. His facts are insanely wrong on 100 levels. Hunter Biden has been a very troubled individual. There are two moments I want to ask you about. One is Biden talking to the camera again and talking to parents who have had sons and daughters they love who have struggled with drugs. That seemed like a very positive moment. And then secondarily, Trump not having the sense to even understand that anybody that's paying attention feels like your adult children have been living off the criminal trough for years. How dare you go after somebody else's? What was your take on those two things?
Well, most people say that Trump projects anyway, that those things that are really about him, he makes about other people. At that moment with Biden, it was not political. The person who was talking at that moment was a father, and the tone was different. The subject matter was different. The hesitance was different. All of that read different and felt different. It resonated differently. And Trump is not, he doesn't have that in his arsenal to either say or to hear when that's really what somebody is speaking to. So that kind of a personal moment, it's really hard to come over the top of that politically. And certainly Trump didn't do it well. It's not the first time that Joe Biden has heard things about Hunter Biden.
Right, exactly.
And you can, and you can actually go back to the 2008 preps when he was running and Sarah Palin was going to be his opponent in those debates, or the one debate that they had. And when they did the prep, Jennifer Granholm, who was the governor of Michigan, played Palin, and she peppered him about Hunter Biden all the way back then. That's 12 years ago, and did it quite aggressively in their prep sessions.
It's interesting.
So this is something that has been out there for a long time. It doesn't feel any differently to a candidate like that, because at that moment they're not a political candidate when they actually have a heart, the kind that Joe Biden has. So, I thought it was shameless and clumsy and really over the top by Trump in just pivoting from one son to the other son, and then, sort of emptying everything in his personal aggrievement book about Biden's family. There's just no place for that. And for as a political matter, it says more about the person making the charges than it does the father up there defending his son.
Beau Biden served in the military and served with distinction. On the heels of the sucker and loser comments that he made, though he obviously denies them, about the military, he's the commander-in-chief. At that moment, simply, I respect your son's service would have ended that, but he went down the dirt road on that as well. I've never heard of him. I don't know who he is. Yeah. Well, his supporters often say the president is a counterpuncher. I mean, really, that's used as an excuse for the fact that the president is a puncher. Yeah, bully.
But the element of truth in all that is he's never going to accept any kind of a criticism or even a point from the other side and just move on. It's one of the reasons, among others, why he has to both sides issues of white supremacy, right? Because if you ascribe to him a certain motive, rather than just say that's not true and I'll tell you why, he's gonna push it back onto you. And that's exactly what he did in that moment of the debate, talking about the Proud Boys. He immediately moved to talk about Antifa and these other groups, because even though he says he's going to renounce white supremacy, what he's really interested in doing is not talking about it and instead attacking you. So whether it's the Biden children or whether it's white supremacy or whatever these things are, that's his instinct.
As you know, because you've known me for a long time, I have sort of a Mr. Smith goes to Washington view of politics, and that is that, I'm well aware that there are very personal motives in lusting for power that people get in and stay in. I believe now more than ever, you have to have people, regardless of party, who want to do the job, who are there to do the job, and understand they work for the people that voted for them. In this case, there's a lot of folks who say there's nobody in the middle. They've made up their mind. They've made up their mind for Trump, or they've made up their mind for Biden, or if you prefer, against Trump. I think there's still a chunk of folks who, not that they haven't decided, but they want to see these debates, and they want to hear what Biden will say, or even what Trump will say. So since we got essentially nothing out of the first debate, I know the next one scheduled is a town hall, the committees on debate say they're going to make changes. What possible changes could they do to control Trump and ask him to be a grown-up?
Well, I mean, you have all the things connected to control of microphones and stage lighting and all the things or cameras, and they can control all that.
But the campaigns have to agree to those rules, right?
They do. As customarily, as part of the Commission on Presidential Debates, they sort of are the conveners, and then the campaigns negotiate what the memorandum of understanding is for the individual debates and all the debates. I mean, I suppose what I would say is, as the Biden campaign, is I would just use what happened in the first debate to put public pressure on the ideal setting that you want for debate number 2. And, in terms of, because what that does is, in a way that rules can't, is it puts some pressure on the Trump operation to impress upon him that politically there's maybe a certain way that he needs to conduct himself. And that's the only thing that's going to constrain him. Rules and norms and order, that none of that matters to him. But what might matter is political survival. So I don't know exactly what those changes would look like, but in terms of accomplishing those things, that has to be the ultimate weapon in the arsenal of those who want an actual exchange of ideas.
Yeah, Biden has already said he's definitely showing up, because there's a lot of speculation about, well, I wouldn't even go into it again. I wouldn't do it if I were Biden. He's going to be there. Is it possible that if Trump's people tell Trump they're going to shut your microphone if you do that, is it possible Trump doesn't show up? Is it possible he says he's done?
Well, he could try to go campaign on it. He could say, look, they're taking the microphone away from me because I was speaking the truth. Right, and this fits into the idea of being aggrieved,
right,
and outsider status and all those things. That's certainly that is certainly a choice he can make.
But this is fascinating psychologically, right? Because he so loves the limelight and the moment, and he lives to be on TV. Yep. He'd have to make a very tough decision. I'm not going to be on TV. That's not who he is.
It could be that he'll go public with the idea that they want to take the microphone away from me. They wanted to do it. I wouldn't let them do it to me because I wouldn't let them do it to you. And I came and I showed up. And then when he goes out to rally, those are the claims that he'll make, right? That he did what he had to do to make sure his message could be heard. But we really know that the powers that be wanted to shut me down.
If you're Biden going into a town hall format from this, what do you do differently?
Well, first of all, you practice in that format, which I'm sure they will do. Mm-hmm. You understand that in 2016, Trump kind of lumbered around the stage and kind of loomed behind Hillary Clinton, and you make him aware of that and also practice that. And I think there's more opportunity for him to be a little firmer in some places. If you think about Trump in a debate, there's really 4 things you can do. You can ignore him. You can use humor against him. You can have outrage against something he said, or you can shame him. Those are really the 4 different approaches that one could take. He tried the outrage on the question about military service. He tried to ignore him most of the time. I think that worked pretty effectively. Some humor. I think there's probably room for a little bit more of the shame approach.
But when he has no shame, and I mean this literally, Donald Trump has no shame.
But that's
you're
not
going
for
the
that's
what I was going to say. You're going for the audience effect, right? The audience understanding of that.
Yeah, the communication is not to Trump; it's about Trump.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the approach.
What about the vice presidential debate? Is this a much bigger deal this year because of the state of the country and what we're in, or is this a skip it?
It's not a skip it. It's a continuation of the conversation, as it usually is. And these can be pretty important. After Obama had his struggles in 2012, the next thing on the calendar was the vice presidential debate. And that is where Joe Biden really bucked up the forces, the Obama forces, by giving a good performance against Paul Ryan. Similarly, if we look back at 2000, Al Gore had struggle in the first debate against George W. Bush that year. That was the year that Gore was sighing and giving facial expressions when Bush was talking. Yeah, well, it's amazing what we understand now to be over-the-top behavior, given the grief that we gave Gore. But so the next debate, they went out, and Bob Shrum, who was the debate coach for Al Gore, has written that they were hoping that Joe Lieberman could really kind of take the focus off of that with a strong debate against Dick Cheney, who in all polling among the electorate about those four candidates that were on the ticket that year was by far the least popular of any of the candidates. And in fact, Lieberman gave a performance which was not aggressive, which was flat. Cheney came and was amiable and jocular, and it did not stem the tide for the Gore campaign. So these things can be important. Mike Pence will play his traditional role of kind of cleaning up after the president. He's a good debater, an experienced debater, a more conventional debater, obviously, than Trump. And Kamala Harris has a strong history as a debater as well. She's going to be a good advocate. But most of the time in these debates, these vice presidential candidates are shooting up at the opposing presidential candidate. So that's what we're going to see. And I think what's interesting about it is it does come on the heels of something that itself became a spectacle enough to be a subject at the next debate. These candidates are going to be asked about it.
Is there more?
I think
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Is there more here, too, because people are looking at Kamala Harris and going, you're one heartbeat away, Biden, 78 years old. I'm worried about his vigor, as you said earlier, and so on. Is there more pressure on her to be presidential as opposed to just supporting the message and the ticket and the president to be Biden?
I don't think so. I think people may watch with an eye towards, hey, it's possible not only that she would step in if something were to happen to Biden if he were elected president, but it's also that there's a decent chance he's only going to serve one term anyway, even if he gets elected.
Right.
So those concerns would be top of mind anyway, though, in the sense that these two people really can be president, given the age of the people that they're serving, but they're both really experienced in politics. And the stakes would be high anyway. So I don't think the stakes are any higher for either of them than they would be otherwise.
Where do the questions come from in a town hall? And is there any chance to game the system? I don't want to pretend I'm playing conspiracy guy here, but how do they protect that?
The questions come from towns, Steve, for a town hall.
Oh, it's a town hall. So the towns actually ask the questions?
They come from towns. They come only from towns, not from cities or villages, but only from towns.
Well, good for towns.
The village hall is the one where they come from villages, and then that's next up on the calendar.
Sure.
They're submitted through to the commission. I don't really know the entire origin of them.
Well, the reason I bring it up is
heard about. Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is because I'm curious how you rehearse with Trump a town hall setting. Do you just do the obvious, I guess, and just go for the general questions you think will come up?
Yeah, but you probably put a more personal twist on them. So it's not only a question about healthcare, it's what happened to my healthcare or my husband's healthcare. And so you add that wrinkle, or what would you say to my family? And you make them a little bit more personal and then see how your candidate responds to that. Because that's a more realistic way the questions would come up. In fact, the most famous question ever in a town hall debate was in the first town hall, 1992, when George H.W. Bush got a question about the economy. And the question was basically, how would you understand about the national debt if you're so remote from us as president? And if you don't understand the issue, how is it that you can do things to help people on the issue? And so it was a question about the national debt, but it was really kind of about the economy. And the president got a little mucked up in trying to sort through a question which was not particularly well worded, but ultimately missed the opportunity to really make a connection with her on a personal basis. Whereas Bill Clinton walked forward, he approached her, he made it more personal about her and her family and what the future would look like. And that was a really big moment in that debate. In fact, after that, now it's not usually allowed for the candidates to approach and speak directly to the people who've asked the questions.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So you have to practice in a way that simulates for them the space, the moment, and the fact that these questions tend to be a little bit more personal in the way that they're posed.
I've taken a ton of time here, and I appreciate Jason Desanto. But before I let you go,
enjoyed it.
The debate on this past debate, the first one, the one that you watched twice because you're apparently sadomasochistic like that. But that debate, everybody says people have made up their minds about Trump, made up their minds about Biden, and so on. I personally believe there's a larger chunk of people in the middle who may not be undecided, but they still need to get some convincing. Did any people move off of Trump because of that? The people that would maybe get engaged late in the process?
I don't know.
What's your gut?
And that's as honest an answer as I can give is I don't know. I suspect there are people who are willing to overlook some of the antics because they agree with some of the policies. And the question for them, if they watched on Monday night or Tuesday night, was, can you still? And there may be some that's a bridge too far. There may be others who say, I knew that already. And I just don't know what the calculus is. I will say, though, that when the goal for the Trump campaign is to play in states like Pennsylvania, and where he's running double digits behind with key voting blocks, he's running double digits behind where he was with suburban voters. He's running double digits behind with white voters without a college degree, double digits behind where he was in 2016. He's got to win those voters over. So it's not simply who's being peeled away from him. It's that he's running behind by double digits in key voting blocks that he needs to win and needed to win in 2016 in order to squeak out a victory in that state. And that state is probably no different than Wisconsin and Michigan and those other Rust Belt states where so much of this election is being played out, whether they be in suburban areas in those states or in rural areas in those states. So it cannot simply be a game of, did I lose? For him in those areas, it's got to be, did I win back people that I've lost?
Interesting.
From 2016. Yeah.
It's Jason Desanto. When he's not teaching at Northwestern and working with candidates, he is available for kids' birthday parties. He comes in and takes the kid who's having the party and sets him up in a debate with another kid. And the kids learn, and they love it. And sometimes they do it in a bouncy house. So it's big fun. I book that for him, so call me. It's great talking to you.
Usually, I'm the one in the bouncy house. They just stand outside and watch, and that is so endlessly entertaining for them.
Please,
Great to be here, Steve.
Thank you, my friend, and I hope you'll do this again, but thanks for all the time. Jason Desanto on Live from my office. If you listen regularly, even if you don't, know this. We have a charitable cause that we bring up on every episode of Live from my office. Today, certainly no exception. And I want to tell you a little bit about Chicago Lighthouse. Chicago Lighthouse is an organization that for over 100 years has been working with people with vision loss. The Lighthouse understands what it takes to respond to the needs of people who are really dealing with vision loss. There's people that you'll deal with at Chicago Lighthouse if you're the parent of a child who is blind or has severe vision problems. Could be you, could be somebody you care about, could be your mom or dad. Lighthouse has seen it all. ChicagoLighthouse.org. There's always fundraisers and ways for you to help raise money. You can donate directly on the website. And sure, they need volunteers as well. And like every other charitable cause this year in 2020, they're really getting pounded, and they could use your help. If you heard me talking about them on the radio, as they were guests multiple times, you know that one of the things they do is make clocks. And I said, look, I'm not trying to be offensive here, but how do blind folks make clocks and put everything in the right place? I don't know. but they do. And they're really cool clocks, and I own a couple of them. That's just one of the ways you can help. ChicagoLighthouse.org. Check the website out, and they're great folks. ChicagoLighthouse.org.
Sit back, relax, and now listen to my show. When or wherever you are, 'cause you're on the go. A-list celebs with some laughs and great info. Live from my office, the Steve Cochran Podcast Show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No better place to be. Yeah, 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 yeah. Subscribe and like for free. So glad you're with me. It's live from my office.
Let's go through the blatant show business plugs as quick as we can here. The fine people at Apt Electronics continue to supply me with gift cards to give to you. Hey, Steve, how do I get one? It's simple. Just send me an email to thecochranshow@gmail.com with the names and email addresses of 3 of your friends. I, in turn, will drop them a note and a sample of Live from my office and ask them to listen. What will you get for your effort? Include your mailing address, and I'll send you an Apt gift card. Pretty sweet. Apt, pleasing people since the beginning of time. Follow me on social media. On Twitter, it's @Cochran Show. The Trump dump continues. We're almost down to 30 days. Every day, starting at 100 days before the election, I've given you another one of Trump's moments that will remind you that we have got to make a change at the top. It's a greatest hits of the worst things that have happened in the last 4 years. And I've listed them all on the website at cochranshow.com. Stop by there. You can also see some of the things I call cock rantings, where I write about current stuff that could be very interesting to you. So you can check that out as well at cochranshow.com, and you could subscribe to the podcast right there too. So Twitter @CochranShow, cochranshow.com. You can subscribe, as I said, as you can wherever you're listening to the podcast. And you can leave comments wherever you listen to the podcast, or drop me comments to that email address at thecochranshow@gmail.com. You can also join me on Facebook and on Instagram and on LinkedIn and on... I'm being told that my MySpace page has now officially been shut down. All right, before we go, oh, boy. He's probably heard about some of the stuff I said about the debate. Let me pick up the phone. He's standing by now. Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning, Cochran. Hey, I'd like to start off this tremendous phone interview with some good news, if I could.
Oh, go ahead. We need good news.
Okay, well, as you know, there's been some unrest over these past few months in our cities. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But my campaign team tells me the country will calm down a bit once we've confirmed a new Supreme Court justice.
I don't know about that. I mean, we'll get to your SCOTUS pick, but what about the debate? How did you think the debate went?
Well, frankly, I think the debate went great, and it was totally obvious that I won.
Was it?
I totally won. Mm-hmm. And I know that because the winner of any debate, as you know, is the person who says the most words and says them at the highest volume. Lots of people agree with me on this. And it wasn't easy. I mean, between the tremendous glare coming off Sleepy Joe's head with the hair plugs and the bright lights bouncing off those fluorescent white dentures, I could have gone completely blind at any second.
I can imagine. Yep, sure.
Hey,
yeah.
Cochran, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Trump.
Trump who?
It's Trump, and I'm interrupting you.
Listen, a lot of people were saying you were making it very hard to have any kind of debate. You kept talking over Vice President Biden. That's no way to do that.
Okay, excuse me. You know who was making it hard with all their talking? CNN. Fake news CNN's Jake Tap Dancer said it was a dumpster fire, and that horse-faced chick anchor... his Dana Bash, showed us all her potty mouth. And they said I was a bully, too. Hell, Anderson Cooper got so mad, he started chewing on his sexy librarian glasses. Did you see that?
Well, how did you think your opponent, Joe Biden, did?
You know what? Joe Biden's idea of preparing for a debate is remembering to bring his hemorrhoid donut.
That's awful.
But did I get Sleepy Joe rattled or what, Cochran? Come on, admit it. Every time I dropped a truth bomb on him, I could see him clenching his butt cheeks like he was trying to make an ass diamond.
Wow. See, this is why...
Seriously.
This is why a small percentage of the population likes you and the rest are just appalled. Do you think he used drugs before the debate to give himself an advantage? That's your claim.
Well, I backed off asking him for a drug test. You know, it wouldn't have been... that nice, humiliating for him to have to change adult diapers backstage. But if he was on drugs, I think Sleepy Joe should probably go find his dealer and get his money back because they weren't working. Not good. But in all fairness, I give Joe credit for showing up and doing it. That debate went well into 10:30. That's like full 3 hours after his nurse usually tucks him into bed.
What did you think when you heard, you notice I ignored that. What did you think when you heard Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson endorsed Biden? I mean, that had to hurt a lot.
Whatever. Look, he needs to lay off the roids, if you ask me. He's got bigger teeth than Melania's Slovenian mother.
Was the Fox News anchor Chris Wallace fair?
Chris Wallace was terrible. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Nobody. It's just Chris Wallace banging his head against the moderator table. Seriously, he lost control so fast, Cochran. It was like we were 5 yentas from The View yapping away up there. Chris Wallace was the worst. He kept interrupting all my interruptions. Very unprofessional. Sean Hannity should have done it.
That would have been a great idea. President Trump, the New York Times claims to have obtained your tax returns. They've done some extensive reporting, really solid journalism. They're saying you only paid $750 in income tax in 2016 and 2017. You paid $0 in tax for 10 of the last 15 years. You, of course, started screaming fake news. What else can you tell us?
Solid journalism from the failing New York Times. They broke the law, Cochran. They posted information that's still under audit. This is one of those complicated audits that takes decades, okay? Extremely successful people know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's just so ridiculous that they're claiming that. I paid a lot more than $750, believe me. In fact, I had to pay out $130,000 in hedge fund taxes to a woman. We had a couple 30-second mergers that we did, and apparently, according to the IRS, all transactions with skanks are non-deductible.
Well, you're on fire today, Mr. President. What about some of these write-offs? They say you took $70,000 for hairstyling when you were on The Apprentice. You ought to get your money back.
Look, I'm going to tell you something. That was actually a great deal. That paid for a family of 5 Filipino women to work like ninjas with blow dryers and cans of Aquanet all season long.
Well, that $200,000 for landscaping at Mar-a-Lago.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. That number, incredibly outrageous. Okay, that was all paid out in pesos, so that was more like $7,000, actually.
Okay. And $210,000 for an event photographer? What?
Okay, I'll admit that was kind of expensive, but it was for a very special occasion. That was for a gender reveal party we had for Caitlyn Jenner and the late Bruce Jenner.
All right,
true.
So tell me briefly about your Supreme Court pick, Amy Coney Barrett from Chicago, where I am. Is she qualified?
Completely qualified. You're going to love her, Cochran. She's more Catholic than the Pope. Matter of fact, she's so religious, she's going to limit her rulings according to whatever her husband says the Constitution says. And frankly, that's a nice quality to have in a woman. Not to mention she's a hot cougar, too. Are you kidding me? 7 kids and she has that figure? Now, granted, a few of those are adopted from overseas, but that just makes her the Angelina Jolie of Supreme Court nominees.
Yeah, okay.
Justice Brett Kavanaugh, Kavanaugh's already invited her to the Supreme Court kegger party at Squeeze House over the weekend.
Right, of course.
But it's hard to believe there was a time when reality show producers wouldn't even let me help pick the judges on the Gong Show reboot. Now look at me, Cochran.
We're out of time, but I want to thank you for calling President Trump. And maybe next time you could tell me what Kavanaugh wears under his robes and if he's sober. But thank you for coming on.
That's okay. I got to go, too. I have a tech guy coming over to fix my Siri device in the Oval Office. She's acting very strange. I came in yesterday. I figured she's always got the answers. So I said, Siri, who are the Proud Boys? And she said, go screw yourself. She's a nasty woman, Cochran.
Give me a go F yourself.
Go F yourself.
Wow.
She's a nasty woman. Nasty woman, Cochran.
Goodbye, sir.
Later, loser.
Well, that went well. Listen, I will not be here next week. I'm taking a few days to go and visit my brother in upstate New York who's ailing, and appreciate some folks who already knew about it who have sent me some good wishes. Thank you for that. But in the meantime, I've got a great guest host and new interviews that you haven't even heard yet. That's next week on Live from My Office when Ross Cochran, my son, will be filling in for me. I know that's way cooler for me than it is for you, but trust me, you'll like him. He is the producer of this endeavor as well. And thank you, son, for that. Thank you to Team Hochberg and David Hochberg, 855-56-DAVID, 56david.com. I'll be back in a week, and if anything dramatic happens next week, I will report to you from the road. Thank you for listening to Live from My Office.
Live from My Office is a service of Monkey Run Productions. all rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening, and follow Steve on all social media channels. Get in touch with us directly with questions or comments about the show by emailing thecochranshow@gmail.com. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.